Okay, thank you all for joining. My name is Lisa Booth, and I am the Executive Director here at the Center for European Studies. And today we are here to hear a talk by Dr. Francesc Morales. First off, the University of Florida Center for European Studies is a Jean Monnet Center of Excellence, and we're also a Title VI National Resource Center for Europe. For those of you who are interested, today's discussion will be available in a recorded form. You'll be able to get that recording off of our website, and we do have a YouTube channel. Our website is www.ces.ufl.edu, and I do hope that you'll check that out and have a look at the video. After Dr. Morales's presentation, we will have a Q&A. So if you have any questions, feel free to enter those questions into the chat box at the bottom. There's a Q&A button, and we will get to those after Dr. Morales's discussion. So thank you all for joining us. We are here today for a presentation on Everybody Knows What's Going On in Catalonia, Democracy, State, and Republican Insurrection. I have to say this is one of our more exciting titles. This talk is rescheduled from our spring talk, which was part of our lunchtime symposia. And we all know why those were changed to virtual. We're fortunate that Dr. Morales has been able to appear virtually, and we're really happy to have him. Dr. Morales received his PhD in Romance Languages from the University of Florida in May 2018. His dissertation, titled Translatio Imperii, Archaeology and Nationalism in Spanish Fiction, 1868 to 1935, explored the role played by fictional representations of archaeologists and archaeological work in the development of modern Spanish national identity. His work, as you can imagine, is interdisciplinary in nature and explores the roles played not only by politics, cultural history, popular culture, biography, philosophy, archaeology, and literature, just to name a few, in the development of national identity. He's not solely interested in Spain either, and he's lectured on similar subjects in the American context and has even looked at the historical evolution of chess and the myriad of ways of gender, ethnicity, and nationalism affected and impacted its development and spread. So we're lucky that we have a scholar with such broad interests. He was a graduate assistant at UF between 2010 and 2018 with the support of the Department of Spanish and Portuguese Studies and also the UF Libraries, in addition to holding research positions with the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program. He holds a certificate in Latin American Studies and an MA in Spanish from UF as well, and also holds degrees in History and Digital Humanities from 2 different universities in Spain. He's currently a visiting assistant professor at the University of North Florida. Now, moderating today's discussion is Dr. Luis Alvarez Castro, who's from our Department of Spanish and Portuguese. He's also, and we're very happy about this, an affiliate faculty member at the Center for European Studies. His research focuses on 19th and 20th century Spanish literature, culture, and film. Again, many disciplines here. And most recently, he has edited a volume on the works of the Spanish playwright, poet, novelist, and philosopher Miguel de Unamuno, which was published by MLA. And I think interdisciplinary seems to be our theme in general today. So with that, I will hand the discussion over to Dr. Morales. And again, afterwards, Dr. Alvarez Castro will handle our Q&A. So thank you very much.
Okay, so I guess it's my turn. Thank you for the introduction, Lisa. Thank you everybody for being here. Okay, I'm gonna minimize this thing. Excellent. So, thank you for being here again. And I'm going to assume 2 conditions for this talk. The first one is just what I assume recognition of a fact. That is that the events on October 1st, 2017 were probably the most massive act of civil disobedience in the history of Europe. Okay, there is something failing right now. Okay. The second has to do with the goal. We are interested in knowing the nature and horizon of democracy in the Kingdom of Spain, thanks to events such as the ones before and after the referendum on October 1st. If you do not accept these 2 assumptions, then what I say will not be addressed to you. If we do accept them, then a number of questions arise, closely related ones, which bring a good deal of thought. The first question is, what is happening right now? what is the situation of the Catalan political institutions and citizens of Catalonia in Spain and other parts of Europe. The second is related to what happened on October 1st, 2017, and its immediate aftermath. A sub-question will be if that referendum was an act that transformed Catalan society. The third question deals with the ideology we can identify as Catalan nationalism, its connections with other political options, such as republicanism and anarchism, and of course, its relationship with other nationalisms in the Iberian Peninsula. The fourth question, basically the origins and path towards the referendum in 2017, is going to be concerned with the most recent history of Catalan nationalism. And finally, what policy options there are to solve the conflict. We have a lot of information about what is happening right now, thanks to the enormous mediatic presence of the Catalan conflict, even with the actual pandemic situation. For example, images from the Catalan referendum were used to promote Black Mirror in 2018, and references to Catalan politics appear in the political dramas Madame Secretary and Designated Survivor. That is why I made the proposal to the Center for European Studies as the 10th season of a drama called The Process, with its villains, heroes, twists, and cliffhangers. Indeed, we are in 2020, 10 years after the events that triggered the whole current situation. The 2010 verdict by the Constitutional Court of Spain against the Statute of Autonomy of Catalonia of 2006, the gigantic demonstrations in the streets of Barcelona in 2010 and 2012, a new Catalan parliament in 2012, the 2014 Catalan self-determination referendum, new elections in the Catalan parliament in 2015, and the 2017 Catalan independence referendum. 3 years later, some of the main characters of that show are in jail, others outside Spain, and many others waiting trial. Dolors Bassa, Meritxell Borràs, Joaquim Forn, Oriol Junqueras, Carles Mundó, Raül Romeva, Josep Rull, and Jordi Turull were members of the Catalan government in 2017. Today, they are still in prison for sedition, misuse of public funds, and disobedience, depending on the person. Also in prison for sedition are the former president of the Catalan parliament, Carme Forcadell, and the presidents of two Catalan organizations, Jordi Cuixart and Jordi Sánchez. The list would be incomplete without the Catalan politicians living in Belgium and Scotland, Antoni Comín, Meritxell Serret, Lluís Puig, Clara Ponsatí, and who was president of the government of Catalonia from 2016 to 2017, Carles Puigdemont. We must add as well other people that left Spain in 2018. Politicians Anna Gabriela Sabater and Marta Rovira moved to Switzerland, and Valtònyc, a rapper sentenced to 3.5 years in jail for glorifying terrorism in his lyrics and also attacking the Spanish royal family. Valtònyc is now in Belgium, finding indirect support by the Council for the Catalan Republic, created by Puigdemont, to continue the project of Catalan independence. The reasoning behind Rovira and Gabriela Sabater is easy to understand. They did not want to go to jail right after being summoned by the Supreme Court, as happened with Cuixart and others. Some sectors of the Spanish judicial system started to use a few years ago the pre-trial detention as a systematic measure, not to mention the use of charges of terrorism, sedition, or rebellion as a way to justify the very same pre-trial detention. So basically what is happening, not just in the Catalan case since a few years ago, is that this pre-trial detention is used as a form of, control certain political enemies in the Kingdom of Spain. The same thing happened with, depending on the charge that is going to be in trial. So if I accuse you of rebellion or terrorism, it's going to be more, let's say, likely that you're going to be in jail before the trial. And even if at the end, the actual charge is going to be lower, like sedition, for example, or disobedience. Since many people consider there is a criminalization of the independentist movement, some initiatives are born, like Democratic Tsunami, a Catalan protest group without leaders, although some believe there is some sort of elite behind it. This is the group that on October 14, 2019, occupies Barcelona El Prat airport after the Supreme Court sentence against the Catalan politicians. As soon as the BBC and France Press broadcasted the message by Democratic Tsunami, the Ministry of the Interior in Spain started an investigation which considers the Tsunami an organization behind terrorist acts. In other words, Catalonia is the excuse used to control the internet in Spain. Another group, born after the 2017 referendum, are the Committees for the Defense of the Republic. The actions of civil disobedience and other forms of creative protest are portrayed as much as possible by the law enforcement and in the media as part of a narrative of violence and impossible coexistence in Catalonia. In September 2019, 9 members of the CDR, these Committees of the Defense of the Republic, were arrested under accusation of terrorism. It seems the Spanish police had some privileged information about some tactical response teams within the CDR, like some kind of terrorist group within the CDR. It is difficult not to think in similar organizations like Catalan Radical Action in 1997, the Coordinated Anarchist Groups in 2014, the Autonomous Rapid Action Groups in 2018, I love this name, and the most recent Blanc Blocs, mentioned this month in some Spanish newspapers as the New Radical Independentist Group. Indeed, Blanc Blocs is a new group. Actually, all the groups mentioned here exist just in the media and police reports. However, we have an interesting twist to the story. A few days ago, the Spanish Minister of Justice announced in the Congress of Deputies the government of Spain is going to start the pardon process for the Catalan politicians in jail. Since 2017, there is a fear of regression in certain freedoms, like assembly or freedom of speech, precisely because of how the Spanish courts handled the Catalan independentist movement. Now it seems the executive power is recovering some political action instead of letting the judicial system acting politically. The political problem must be solved politically and not jurisdictionally, especially in the Kingdom of Spain, where the legislative, executive, and judicial powers are so close to each other. But as we say in Spain, happiness is short in the house of the poor. Since yesterday, President Quim Torra, the president of the government of Catalonia, was confirmed unfit by the Supreme Court to be president. Also, activists like Tamara Carrasco Garcia is waiting trial for sending a message through WhatsApp asking for protests against the Spanish repression, and former local politician Jordi Pesarrodona has been sentenced for disobedience because he stopped a civil guard when the cop tried to enter in an electoral college during the 2017 referendum. So, what happened on October 1st, 2017? How was the independence referendum that year? First, the event depended from the law on the referendum passed by the Parliament of Catalonia. Around a month before the chosen date, it was declared unconstitutional and suspended by the Constitutional Court after a request from the government of Spain. More than 2 million Catalans went out to the streets to vote anyway. The referendum question, which voters answered with yes or no, was, do you want Catalonia to become an independent state in the form of a republic? The affirmative side won with 92.01%. The Catalan government estimated that up to 770,000 votes were not cast due to polling stations being closed off during the police crackdown. The police intervention started on September 20, 2017, titled Operation Anubis, which was followed by Operation Copernicus. In total, 12,000 strong police force with a cost of 87 million euros. The actions of the National Police and Civil Guard not just stopped 770,000 people to vote, but also injured 1,066 civilians. At the end of the day, the police operation failed because the ballot boxes could not be found. They were hidden beyond the frontier in France by the Committees for the Defense of the Referendum, the future Committees for the Defense of the Republic. Police violence during the referendum galvanized Catalan unions and cultural associations in support of a general strike on October 3rd, 2 days after the referendum. Òmnium Cultural, Catalan National Assembly, Catalan Government, and the Catalan branches of Unión General de Trabajadores and Workers' Commissions. The plan was to call 3 million Catalans to stop economic activity, business owners, workers, and the self-employed. We have figures from the cities of Barcelona and Girona, 700,000 and 60,000 people in the streets in demonstration. The same day, King Philip VI gave a speech on TV, proving that in Spain, the head of a state does not follow democratic positions in exceptional situations. So what happened in the case of Spain is that, yes, we have a constitutional monarchy, so-called constitutional monarchy, and that works pretty well, unless there is an exceptional moment. Then, like in the case of abdication and similar situations like the Catalan case, then we can see how problematic is the monarchic principle in a country that's supposed to be a democracy. On October 10, President Puigdemont considered the referendum results to be valid and assumed the mandate of the people for Catalonia to become an independent state in the shape of a republic. Immediately, he asked the parliament to suspend the effects of the Declaration of Independence in an attempt to negotiate with the government of Spain. The Spanish government planned to abort the suspension of self-rule in Catalonia, what eventually happened on October 21st. 6 days later, the Parliament of Catalonia unilaterally declared independence from Spain. Before November, Puigdemont and other members of the government were already in Belgium. How relevant was the referendum of October 1st? In other words, was that event what we popularly call a historical moment? Professor Ramon Grosfogel is clear about it. After the referendum, the people did not buy the fairy tale of a democratic Spain anymore, neither the human rights in the European Union. Furthermore, Grosfogel uses a Quechua concept to talk about what happened in the Catalan society those days in October, Pachacuti, a concept implying the transformation of the subjectivity in large scale. Also, civil disobedience became the only path for the Catalan people and self-determination the only goal. So what exactly means self-determination, independence, and other concepts in Catalan politics? This is the part dealing with Catalan nationalism, or political Catalanism, the ideology asserting that the Catalans are a nation. Catalan nationalism can be said to have commenced as a political philosophy in the unsuccessful attempts to establish a federal state in Spain in 1873. It's not older than that. Some Catalan intellectuals that participated in this process set up a new political ideology to obtain self-government and recognition for the Catalan language. It is important to understand that until 1869, the different constitutions in the Spanish territory had the monarchy as the main political principle, not the people. For example, the first one in 1812 is the political constitution of the Spanish monarchy. That's the real title, usually quoted as if it was equivalent to the ones in the French Republic or in the United States of America. For example, the one in the United States of America, of course, there is no monarchic principle there. The power resides in the people, like in many other constitutions. This is not the case in the constitutional history of Spain. The one in 1869 was the first creating a truly democratic constitutional monarchy after the expulsion of Elizabeth II of Spain. It recognized, for example, freedom of religion, and it had the space for federal ideas within a Spanish territory. 4 years later, the draft of the 1873 Constitution, intended to regulate the Spanish Republic, was the first text trying to transform Spain from a unitary state into a federation, but the project failed. After the coup d'etat of Arsenio Martinez Campos in 1874, a member of the Bourbon family, Alfonso XII, became king of Spain. In 1876, a new constitution was approved, and from 1874 to 1931, the Kingdom of Spain is, to this day, the most long-lived form of state in this territory called Spain. The one we have today, also called Kingdom of Spain, started in 1975, while the Spanish Republic went from 1931 to 1939, and the Spanish state under Francisco Franco from 1938 to 1975. So this called Restoration of Monarchy in 1874 has the record still. Catalan nationalism thrived under the reign of Alfonso XIII, 1902-31, after the loss of Cuba and Puerto Rico in a war against America. The early stages of Catalanism grew in support, mostly because of the weakened Spanish international position. The failure of a federal republic made the movement acquire a clear political character, directed to the attainment of self-government for Catalonia within the framework of a Spanish liberal state. So in the first decades of this thing called Catalan nationalism or political Catalanism, there is no such thing as claiming for independence. That's something that it will be more common in the 20s, 30s, but not in the late 19th century. Therefore, republicanism started to be practically synonymous to Catalanism. Following Ramon Alcoverro here, republicanism is the ideology that advocates governing a nation as a republic. That is, a matter that competes with all citizens and not just a certain social class or elites. It refers to a political system that protects freedom and is especially based on the law that cannot be ignored by the government itself. Emphasis is usually placed on citizen participation, civic values, and their opposition to corruption. In the Republican tradition, the exercise of political rights and the defense of the Constitution is more important than the strict form of government. Republicanism is not just the absence of a king. The real enemy is tyranny. For example, we have many countries calling themselves republics, but none have protected basic rights, such as freedom of the press or the human rights of their own citizens. Republic of Turkey, People's Democratic Republic of Algeria, People's Republic of China, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, Islamic Republic of Pakistan, Islamic Republic of Iran, Islamic, so on, so on. In summary, and I hope that does not come as a shock for many of you, Spain is not a republic, and not just because there is a king in the throne. The way the two kingdoms of Spain, the one starting in 1874 and the other in 1975, deal with the political options in the margins is quite similar, in part thanks to the low democratic level in both cases. We're going to take the British example here. The factors that facilitated the transition to democracy there, without great violent tensions, were a strong and independent parliament in front of the king, the early adaptation of the upper rural classes to the development of industrial capitalism, and the non-existence of an effective coercive apparatus due to traditional weaknesses of the army, which forced the possessing classes to opt more for negotiation with other social groups than for repression. In Spain, the crown controlled the mechanisms of the national power faster than the collective interests. Those interests were articulated periodically through reivindicative mobilizations. The state became weak and inoperative, subjected to the pressure of traditional de facto powers, such as the army or the church. The state, among other things, had a poor response to the growing demands of other collective actors, which explains periodical crises of legitimacy and its frequent entrenching in resistant attitudes of a strong coercive imprint. For their part, the social sectors marginalized by the liberal regime failed to organize their impulse to protest or to effectively mobilize their arsenal of demands. At times, they found no other way out than to instrumentalize their demands by deploying violent litigation, in a context of a state vulnerability that favored precisely the adoption of such strategies of confrontation. That was the state of affairs from 1874 to 1931, but it looks so familiar because the so-called transition to democracy after the death of Franco in 1975 is, in fact, another monarchy restoration, like the one in 1874. John Charles I became king because that was already in the works with the law of succession to the headship of the state in 1947, one of the 8 fundamental laws of the realm being a Spanish state. One of the traditional enemies of the Kingdom of Spain in the 19th century were the Republican insurrections. The state methods against them were quite expeditive and ritualistic, involving preventive arrests, like in May 1875 in Madrid and Barcelona before any plot could really start, or mobilizations of thousands of soldiers to the north at the first sight of Republican insurrection rumor. If we take how many times the constitutional guarantees were suspended and the state of war was declared in Spain between 1874 and 1931, the number is 128 times. Between 1875 and April 14, 1931, the declaration of Spanish Republic, the days under the state of war in Catalonia were 1,010. Without constitutional guarantees, 5,411. There was no real effort to reform the Constitution of 1876, a democratic necessity and a way to solve problems with some sort of juridic order. Like today, the solution against the enemies of the Kingdom of Spain is to send a lot of cops, twist the judicial system, apply gag laws, and treat the Constitution as some sort of monstrous repressive law. Every time a serious attempt to democratize the Constitution of the country, a reaction happens. 1923 with the dictatorship of Primo de Rivera, and 1936, the beginning of the Spanish Civil War. The constitutional history of Spain is a reactionary one. Now it is the time to see what happened constitutionally in the pilot episode of the process. The 1978 constitutional organization of the territory is based on two guarantees: a pact between the Spanish parliament and the autonomic one. So we have 17 autonomous communities in Spain, and they have to basically negotiate how to organize themselves with or against the Spanish Congress. The system was, of course, created for the cases of Catalonia, Basque Country, and Galicia. The Statute of Autonomy of Catalonia dated from 1979. After the election in November 2003, a new government was formed in Catalonia with the support of the Socialist Party of Catalonia, Republican Left of Catalonia, Initiative for Catalonia Greens, and United and Alternative Left. This is the government who drafted the new statute in 2005, approved by the Catalan Parliament, amended in the Spanish Congress in 2006, and approved in referendum by the Catalan people on June 18, 2006. Despite the anti-Catalan propaganda by the media and some political parties, mainly the People's Party, the new statute worked really well for 4 years, which is relevant because Spain cannot function as a democracy without the collaboration of regional powers like the Catalan one. Then, in 2010, the Constitutional Court imposed an autonomic statute that the Catalan did not vote as constituent people. As Professor Javier Pérez Royo has explained several times, the Constitutional Court performed materially a coup d'etat. The reaction was immediate. The huge demonstration of 1.5 million people in the streets of Barcelona on July 10, 2020. The protest was organized by Òmnium Cultural with the public support of about 1,600 organizations, political parties, trade unions, the main employers federation, Football Club Barcelona, etc., etc. That was the day many Catalan nationalists became independentists, and the Republican project became intertwined with a nation-building process. So basically what happened in 2010 is that the Constitutional Court removed, let's say, the political power that the people of Catalonia had, the sovereignty. And the solution was, okay, so we're going to create a new referendum. And then actually we had two different referendums after this 2010 verdict. And of course, the next thing that happened is that many Catalan politicians that they consider themselves Catalans and Catalonia as a nation, etc., they started to support, in part because of the pressure of the bases, more independentist solutions to the political problems. So, what policy options there are? In the short term, the problem has no solution. That's basically is not just my opinion, is the opinion of so many other scholars. Literally has no solution. The 2010 Constitutional Court verdict, where when the judges in Spain started to play, as we usually say, the apprentice of sorcerer. Well, we're going to do this thing, and I don't think it's going to happen anything. Yeah, something happened. So in the short term, I don't see any kind of solution here. As I mentioned, the centralized political organization of the territory in Spain is basic to keep some levels of democracy in the country. Once broken in 2010 in Catalonia, the territory, from the constitutional point of view, is gone. This is extremely important to understand. The integration of Catalonia to the rest of Spain, that is a problem even before the constitutional creation of Spain in the 19th century. We have the Republican uprisings in 1640. We can understand also some form of republicanism during the succession war of Spain in the early 18th century, but it's especially in the 19th century that became a problem. So if this problem is not solved, we don't have a democracy in Spain. And that's clear from the constitutional point of view. Every single time that we have, let's say, a unitary form of government in Spain, it's under non-democratic measures. Now, to solve this, the conflict we have now in the short term, is impossible because the Catalan society is not going to accept a solution 1978 style. So this type of, we draft a statute and then we negotiate this with the central government back and forth, and then we have a local referendum. We already did, and it failed. It failed 4 years later. Another solution: deactivating manu militari, or by any other means of repression, the Catalanist movement, and that's historically non-efficient. The reason is simple. Catalan nationalists see their movement as a wide one that brings together political parties and citizens from the left as well as from center and right. Usually the expression that many media uses and many politicians as well is like, the independentist side is highly divided. Yeah, because it's wide open, not because it's divided. And that without mentioning anarchists within the group and Catalan groups that they consider themselves Catalanists but not independentists. That's sometimes allies for other independentist groups. So there is nothing that you can offer to appease them. From the point of view of the Spanish government, it's very, very difficult to create a solution to all of them because it's highly diverse, as I said. In terms of political culture, what we can do about that? There is a dangerous confusion between democracy and state, and this is not just a Spanish problem. For example, if I reinforce the state, therefore I have a stronger democracy. That is so wrong. I mean, that's we are so used to believe that we live in democracies that we don't understand that democracy is a system of government, not a form of government. So you can have a company, an enterprise, a big business that functions democratically or not, being in a democratic republic or not, or being in a constitutional democratic monarchy or not. So democracies cannot be the substitution for what we usually call representative republics. So it's an error, big mistake to call our countries democracies. And that's very, very common in the Spanish politics discourse. For example, it is so significant that such Spanish culture has zero problems integrating Vox, a far-right political party orchestrated by none other than Steve Bannon. So maybe there is some complaints, but there is no problem to accept this type of far-right political party in the Congress and in different other parliaments in Spain. But it has always problems with Catalan independentist groups. So the Spanish political discourse has more problems with Catalan independentist groups or political parties, or for that matter, any other independentist group like Izquierda Castellana in Madrid, or the many other Andalusian groups in the south. In case you are wondering, Vox is asking also for anti-constitutional measures. So, I don't know, 90% of the things that the Vox says is openly anti-constitutional, and nobody's like screaming to the skies. And the so-called Spanish left is not very helpful either, because with their nostalgia for the Spanish Republic of 1931, they confuse Republican society with Republic just by name, expecting that if Spain will magically become a republic again, all the problems will be solved and everybody will be living happily in Lollipop Lane. And of course, it doesn't work that way, because there is a huge difference between republic as a society and republic and a country called republic like China, for example. In the long term, maybe there is some type of solution. At least Spain is part of something bigger. Now there is that's the big difference between now and 100 years later, before. Here, I'm not talking just about the European Union, which means the Court of Justice of the European Union or the European Court of Human Rights. I'm talking about the Republican conception of society at its core, probably the oldest European political tradition. In fact, the idea of this thing called United States of Europe has different names through history, but let's summarize in this, is a Republican idea. From Victor Hugo to Emilio Castelar and Pascual Maragall, former president of the government of Catalonia. Like actually the idea of having in the Iberian Peninsula an entire country, like what happened in Italy or Germany, it was also part of the Republican Spanish tradition. It failed, but at least it was there. So this maybe could be the solution in long term. For example, this former president of Catalonia, Pascual Maragall, that he has Alzheimer from 2000 and something. He's a great supporter of something called European Democratic Party. That is a democratic party that supports the idea of understanding Europe as a patria in the Republican sense of the word. In any case, at least, and this is the last thing, republicanism, the true republicanism, rejects utopian ideas, and that's, I believe, it's a good thing to be more realistic. And if you are a true republicanist, you are gonna embrace some type of Czech reality to the politics of today. And with this, I finished, and I'm gonna let, I believe it's Luis Alvarez Castro, to do some sort of Q&A session.
So the question reads, do you think that complete European integration is a sustainable solution to the Catalan problem? I don't know if by that what the person means is an integration of Catalonia as an independent state within the UE.
I guess he's referring to what I said at the end, that could be this type of solution. Two things here. First, what happens when a country became independent? And that's something that we can learn, not just in the Catalan case, but in general for any other independent process. Like I'm aware that this type of discussion is happening in Puerto Rico. So the thing is, when you became independent, the immediate response is, okay, you're going to be isolated. That, of course, is not true. We are not living in the 17th century anymore. So the idea is you became independent in order to be more integrated. That depends to what you are being integrated. And that's the second answer to the question. I think it's for Joaquim José, to Kim. And the second question is, okay, let's say the Republic of Catalonia exists beyond just a website and a council that we have in Brussels, with Carles Puigdemont there, and it became part of something bigger, that is this European Union. The problem is with type of European Union. And I know that many people are upset or have strong opinions about what happened with the Brexit in the case of the United Kingdom. Well, let's be honest, it makes total sense. I mean, if you want to control your society and you have a, let's say, healthy, okay, not good, but healthy Republican society like the British one, and then you're part of something that you don't know exactly who's controlling what. We have a European Parliament, yes, but then we have a lot of commissars, and we don't have a united financial system. That's part of the disaster of the euro. So integrated in this type of Europe is not going to be good. That's my projection. But maybe it could help if we transform, like through the Pasqual Maragall project and many other politicians. Pasqual Maragall is not the only one behind these ideas. Then maybe we're going to transform the European Union to some sort of more Republican organization. We have long traditions of republicanism in all these countries, and the same as Christian democracy and similar positions. So that would be my answer to Kim.
So can you see the second one by Alejandro Ramos is related to this? How difficult would it be for Catalonia to join the EU?
Yeah, I see the question now. How difficult will it be?
And if I could add maybe like another question to that, one of the discourses against a possible integration of Catalonia in Europe says that the major players, by that I mean Germany, France, would be afraid of other territories following suit, and therefore they would try to block Catalonia's access to the EU as an independent nation, just in order to block future possible independences.
Yeah, actually the answer is that we don't have an answer because there is no precedent. Most of the things that are happening in these 10 years or so that I described are absolutely unique, not just for Spanish politics or Catalan politics, but also for European politics. So the idea that a part of a member already within the European Union, like separating from that and then asking again, in Scotland they had the same issue as well. The answer is we have no idea. They will have to invent something, and that's the beauty of the whole thing, and that's the drama also in the Catalan situation. Constitutions and laws not as much, but constitutions in the broader sense of the word, they should allow to do a lot of things if we have the political will to do it. And I'm going to give you an example that is constantly repeated about this 2010 declaration, unconstitutional declaration of the Statute of Catalonia. Many of the articles were the same as the Statute of Andalusia. Actually, when Andalusia integrated through the rest of Spain in the early 1980s, they had their own referendum as well, like many other areas. The referendum was unconstitutional. because one of the provinces, Almeria, didn't vote majority for the yes. The solution is that's too serious. We cannot reduce everything to you check the wrong place, kind of thing. So that will be a problem for the European Union to use some sort of imagination.
Mm-hmm. We have a question by William Hogan. Has to do basically with the prospect of public demonstrations, which took place after the decision to bar Quim Torra from public office. So they say the recent decision by Spain's top court to ban Quim Torra from taking office, coming so close as it does to the October 1st anniversary, seems certain to bring out large numbers of demonstrators on Thursday. Is the mood of Catalonia consistent with once again massive demonstrations coming up?
Yeah, so this question is about the recent events, about Quim Torra not being fit for being president of the government of Catalonia. The whole thing has started because during the last elections, he allowed a banner in the palace of the government of Catalonia saying freedom for political prisoners or something like that. Yeah, and then
I think it was just the yellow ribbons, not even the text, just the yellow ribbons in different.
Or just the, even better, just the yellow color in some balcony, and then the Central Electoral Administration received some complaint by I guess it was Ciudadanos or some other political party, and it was commanded to stop to remove that banner. So he decided not to do it until like 2 days later or something like that. So he was charged with disobedience. He was sentenced by disobedience by the High Court in Catalonia. The Supreme Court affirmed what the High Court in Catalonia decided. So he's not fit to be president of Catalonia anymore, and that of course created violence yesterday in the streets of Barcelona. And actually the Mossos d'Esquadra, the Catalan police, was already on alert since last week. Because of this was about to happen, actually the media already released it as usual before the sentence, and we have the anniversary of the October 1st referendum in 2-3 days as well. So the Catalan police was on alert. Actually, the Catalan police is on alert 4 out of 5 of terrorism since 2015. Like many other countries, by the way. So that's going to create eventual disturbance in the streets of Catalonia, Barcelona mainly. Yeah, for sure. And then it's going to disappear. Like the problem is how you approach these acts of violence in the streets, or demonstration, violent demonstration, riots, and we have like different words to mention that. You can consider that it's some sort of freedom of assembly, and that's going to pass, or you can apply the anti-terrorist law. It's basically the mechanism to cope with what happened if you burn a container in I don't know, Sevilla, and you burn a container in Barcelona. So in Sevilla, nothing's going to happen, a fine maybe. In Barcelona, you are going to be attached to some kind of terrorist group that I'm going to make up in this report. And by made up, I literally say made up because the last investigations by the general attorney in Spain, they already used the concept. Yeah, this is the terrorist side of the Catalan independence movement, as if it was already like a reality out there. In my opinion, like personally, I don't like support this type of behavior around violence situations in the streets, but I totally understand them. That's totally understandable.
We have a second question by Joaquin Jose. Is it possible to compare the Scottish movement to the Catalan movement? And if I could add, I'm throwing Canada. When?
Oh, with the Quebec.
Yes.
Yeah, we have many comparisons out there between the Scottish situation, the Yugoslavian situation, of course, it came out several times, and the Quebec situation, the Puerto Rico situation. And that's the beauty of the whole thing. So we can compare, because the reaction usually is like, oh my God, how can you compare this? They're so different. There's nothing to do. Yeah, of course, that's why I'm comparing them. If they were the same, there was no point to compare them. So in which regard they are, let's say, different, the Scottish situation and the Catalan situation. Not just because how it's organized the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. That is way more complex than the Kingdom of Spain as a state. The main difference for me is that there is no discussion about Scotland being a nation. So when we had the last referendum, both sides, yes and no, they totally understand that Scotland is a nation, the Scottish people are a nation. So the people saying yes for the separation of the Scotland from the rest of the United Kingdom is like, because we want this, blah, 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 blah. But the people saying no, they were saying, we are a nation and we fought side by side with other brothers and sisters in World War II, World War I, and that doesn't invalidate us as a nation. And we are part of this. We're part of the financial effort. We are part of the economic engine of this great thing called Great Britain. So for me, this is the big difference, because in the Catalan situation, not even all the Catalanist groups recognize totally that Catalonia is a nation. If I can clarify a little bit more, let's say that the Socialist Party of Catalonia hasn't clear, so they understand that Catalan is a separate thing, but not necessarily considered as a strong nation, maybe something more subjugated to the big nation of Spain. And of course the people saying, no, you don't have to even the right to vote anything because you are not even a nation. That's a fantasy, and blah, blah, blah. So I will say that this is the main difference between the Scottish case and the Catalan case. Also, honestly, the Catalan case and the rest of the cases probably.
Richard Tate, thank you for the interesting talk. Is there a rural-urban divide in Catalonia regarding independence? That is, are more people pro-independence in the cities versus rural areas, or vice versa? If so, how might these tensions affect the course of this issue? I think this is interesting, the demographics of the movement.
Yeah, there is a bigger question, or bigger concern about that, and it's how divided is the Catalan society? Because usually we say, oh, the Catalan society is divided, and we assume this is bad. Like, I don't know, there are so many things that we assume they are good or bad just when we say them, like diet, cultural appropriation, immigration, they are just facts. They are not good or bad by itself. So this division in the Catalan society, of course, there are pro-independence against independence, but we have also divisions between pro-abortion against abortion, rural areas, urban areas. And it's a division that existed there before or besides, if you parallel it to the, let's say, independentist movement. So traditionally, the rural areas were more approached to, let's say, this right-wing conservative, liberal conservative position represented by the disappeared by now political party called Convergència Democràtica. At the same time, also the Union, Democratic Union of Catalonia, that it was the Christian democracy, basically the Carlists transformed through the 20th century. They were the dominant parties in the rural areas, and they were Catalanists, yes, but not independentists. In the urban areas, basically Barcelona and surrounding cities, the Socialist Party was the big game there. It was the main player. And yeah, originally play with the idea of being, asking for more self-determination, let's say that. But then is when the whole game changed in 2010, probably even before 2010. All these rural areas that were dominated, if you want to use 19th century style concepts, by conservative parties, they became super independentist. And then the socialists, they were part of the referendum we had in 2014. It was not exactly a referendum; it was a consult, and they were behind the whole thing as well. Then disappear from the independentist position. So now we have a city that is probably less independentist than ever I'm talking from the institutional point of view, and rural areas that they are more independentist. But this is one of the many, let's say, do you remember this game that you have a lot of chairs and there is an extra person, and then there is the music song?
Musical chairs.
Musical chairs, exactly. So that's basically the Catalan politics in the last 10 years. So we have this musical chair, and then there are people that they are disappearing because they don't follow the rhythm. And overnight it changed. The rural areas became super pro-independentist. Of course, there are differences between the north and the south of Catalonia and the interior, the hinterland of Barcelona, in comparison with the city of Barcelona. To give you an example, one of the reasons we have the mayor we have in Barcelona, Ada Colau, is because there was a political situation where they didn't want a member of the Republican left of Catalonia as the mayor of Barcelona. He had the votes, like let's say the people vote, but in Spain the electoral system is not because what the people voted, but you form a parliament, local or regional or general, and then it's this parliament who voted the government. So the decision within the parliament of the city of Barcelona was to elect a left non-independentist politician like Ada Colau, with the support of the right-wing politicians, because it was that fear, and also there was the possibility of doing that in the city of Barcelona. If we were talking now from the late 90s position, and I will hear myself saying this, it will sound super crazy. I was like, no, what are you talking about? Barcelona is the capital of the independencies, etc., etc. When we have these huge demonstrations in the city of Barcelona, is of course because it's filled with people that came from outside, not just because of the main cities going out and demonstrating.
Yeah. So we have another question that deals with the demographics of the movement. How does internal immigration, and I would add to that also international immigration, affect that? And I would like to add to Joaquin's question, a generational divide, because I believe that is very clear.
So continuing, how does internal immigration from other areas of Spain, other areas of Spain to Catalonia affect the movement and the division of Catalonia? Yeah, there is some sort of urban legend within the hardcore Catalanism that all the migration from other parts of Spain, mainly Andalusia, like my parents, they moved, and that disturbed some sort of, I don't know, path to independence from the, I don't know, medieval times or something like that. That's not true at all. Actually, the politicization of the country, and my country, I mean Catalonia, increased with the arrival of highly politicized people from the south of Spain, basically Andalusia, Extremadura, and Murcia. We're talking about 2-3 million population moving to Catalonia, but Catalonia was around 2 million people after the Spanish Civil War. And, you know, the level of conformity was clear because it still followed this 19th century behavior where you have a fight for self-government, but within Spain. That was the main thing in the 19th century. In the 1920s, 30s, Esquerra Republicana de Catalunya, Republican left of Catalonia, started to promote independence of Catalonia, but that wasn't the majority position until the 21st century. So when all this population arrived from the south of Spain, Catalonia became highly politicized, of course. But what it means that is we're going to fight in the streets to have better let's say, right for workers. We're going to have better urbanism, better organization in the streets, and we're going to use Catalan language or not. Some of the politicians I just mentioned, the ones that they are in jail, they are also sons of, I don't know if it's Jordi Sánchez or Jordi Cuixart is the son of a woman from Murcia, but it doesn't invalidate anything. So this, let's say, arrival of immigrants, in any case, invigorated the political, let's say, foundation of Catalonia, because it wasn't a nation-building project yet. I mentioned that in the talk. What happened in 2010 is that the Republican project is mixed with something called nation-building, and that makes this situation highly suspicious because it's not necessarily pro-independence all the time. And I think there is a second part to the question that is, I know you Luis asked about the international. Yeah, that's the other thing that is so funny. I mean, we still think as if we were in the 1970s or 60s, the only immigrant in Catalonia is a guy from, I don't know, Malaga. And we have population from many places of Africa, Romania, China, and Latin America all the time in Catalonia. And they are part of the independentist movement as well, or not. The actual consul, or minister if you want, of family affairs in Catalonia, he's from Morocco. We have members of the parliament that they are from Morocco, Algiers, India. We have one of the senators of Spain that is from a political party from Catalonia. He's from India. We have people from Uruguay in the Congress of Spain and the Parliament of Catalonia, in the Senate. So that's basically the Republican side of Catalan politics, because your patria is the place that your rights are going to be respected and you have some sort of freedom. If not, you're going to be treated like, well, you're a Spaniard, but you don't look like a Spaniard. This kind of thing, it's more difficult to find in Catalonia. That's why we have this, the counselor of the domestic affairs in Catalonia is Muslim.
Let's see, we have another question. Do you believe Catalonia is capable of making international allies who could assist in their independence struggle, or even just their attempts to receive justice in how Spain has treated their efforts? Or do you think too many fear similar instances in their own countries or scorn from the international community at large for doing so? Do you think this support, if possible, could tip the scales in any meaningful way for Catalonia?
Yeah, well, a lot of questions, Evelyn. International allies.
Well,
it depends on
at the
what.
top of my head, I would have two international allies, Germany and Belgium. Well, and the UK, who didn't
Yeah,
respond to Spanish demands for.
Yeah, but that depends on which international allies we're talking about. Something like me, hello, I'm the French Republic, or hello, I'm the Federal Republic of Germany. And I totally see that this part of the Kingdom of Spain has the right, that's a declaration of war against the Kingdom of Spain. So that's not going to happen ever. That's basically what happened in Yugoslavia. It's like Croatia says, oh yeah, I'm an independent republic. And Germany said, oh, I agree. And then is when we had the problem. And that's why Spain doesn't recognize Kosovo to this day. And that created a lot of problems in Europe, of course. So that, if we are thinking in the States, no, it's not going to happen. If we think in like specific parliaments, like in Finland, in I don't know, many countries already supported Catalan independence or Catalan right to decide anything, blah blah. Yeah, there are many. Actually, one of the I just came to my mind. One of the most smart things I ever hear from Donald Trump. It was when the president of Spain back then, Mariano Rajoy, visited the United States. And of course, Mariano Rajoy was asked about, that was around the time of the referendum, 2017. He was asked about what was going on in Catalonia, there will be a referendum, and Mariano Rajoy said, no, it's not going to happen, blah, blah. And then Donald Trump came out with something incredibly smart. He said, well, I'm not going to impress Donald Trump right now. So, I'm sure that the government of Spain, they are not going to allow to have the referendum, but I'm totally sure at the same time that the people of Catalonia, they're going to be out and support the referendum. And I thought, wow, that's the smartest thing that I probably ever said, because that's exactly the problem. So we have a huge division between how the government behaves and how the people behaves. And these people organized can have a lot of support internationally, but they are not going to be governments, that's for sure. That's out of the question. There are going to be some court in Germany that said, okay, this extradition order against Carlos Puigdemont, it's ridiculous. Some court in Brussels saying the same thing, some court in Scotland saying the same thing, etc. That happened because there the trials are in, the courts are independent. But the government, it will be, honestly, I have no idea how that could be. And I don't know if I answered the whole thing because it was very long, the question.
Mm-hmm. No, but I think that provides an answer.
Okay, so I think we're going to stop for now since we are at our hour. And thank you so much, Dr. Alvarez Castro, for moderating these questions. There will be a survey that will be sent out by Zoom after, I think it'll come out probably in a day or so. I do ask that all of you please fill out that survey, and we really do use that information when we have talks and things like this, and it tells us kind of what kind of talks you guys are interested in. So thank you all very much for joining. Again, this is recording, and it is available on, or it will be available on our website, www.ces.ufl.edu. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.